Today, we're talking study habit tips. Stay tuned. Hey guys, and welcome back to another Surgical Tech Tips video. Now, a lot of you guys out there have been wanting me to make a video about proper study techniques and, just techniques that you can utilize throughout the school year, techniques that you can utilize for the CST program in general, and proper ways to figure out all of those instruments and try to memorize and remember all of that instrumentation. So I'm going to give you guys five tips that I feel are valuable for any school program, to be honest with you, but I'll also gear it more towards CSTs and instrumentation, anatomy and physiology, that type of stuff. These are all techniques that I utilize personally. Last year when I was going through my CSFA schooling, I utilized these tips all the time. So here we go. The first tip I have for you is, I feel it's kind of common sense, but there are those of you out there, and I went to school with some students that just did not take notes. And I feel like notes are by far one of the best things that you can do to help you retain information in your brain. You're sitting through a lecture, you're watching someone talk to you, you're reading the PowerPoints that these teachers have created. That's good, and a lot of people are visual learners, and they can see that and remember it for life. Most of us are not as fortunate as that though. And the process of actually, writing down what's on a PowerPoint, or writing down, little snippets that your teacher may hint to you, hey, this is important information, you guys are gonna need to know this. Usually, if you have a really nice teacher, they'll kind of hint on those really good, important points that you guys need to write down. And making those notes are so important in helping retain that information. This goes back to the preference card video that I made a couple weeks ago. Writing down that information about the surgeon and writing down all the steps of a surgery for that specific surgeon will help you remember and help you, gain insight into that surgery and help you remember and memorize those steps. It's a process that is time consuming. I don't enjoy doing it, but it does help me remember things. A lot of the times when I was in CST school, you sit through those long anatomy lectures, those like anatomy and physiology lectures, especially like microbiology and all that physiology and stuff like that. A lot of that it can be boring, it can be, monotonous to sit through an entire, couple-hour lecture listening to that stuff. And your notes may be strewn all over the place in different subjects. It's a good idea when you get home that night, you can organize your notes. So, organization is key. So much so that I needed to touch on it one more time for you guys. Stay organized. Please, stay organized. You can even have like a separate notebook to have organized notes, and then a notebook for notes that you take during class, because things can get hectic. You're trying to write down as much information as possible so you can remember it and retain it for later on. But if you take time after school, and maybe after you finish up some homework or finish up some reading, take time to look through those notes and organize it in a fashion that is easier for you to read and easier for you to, study that material over again. So take notes. Please take notes. I've mentioned this multiple times across tons of videos. Take notes in school, take notes at work, take notes after surgeries. It's important. I wouldn't be saying it all the time if it wasn't. Second tip I have for you is reading ahead. The textbooks that you're gonna get, these A&P textbooks, you may get some pharmacology textbooks, some microbiology textbooks. There's a lot of information in them, a ton of information. And when you start your school year, your teacher will give you a syllabus of, things that you're going to be learning week to week. So you'll have an idea and you have a map of what you're going to be learning throughout the year. Now, that's not just for you to look at and recognize, hey, we're going to be learning this week, this week. It's there to help you stay ahead. And by that, I mean reading ahead. Start at the beginning of the school year and try and read through chapters that you're going to be learning the next day. Reading through that material ahead of time gives you a proper understanding, especially of physiology, microbiology, pharmacology. I mean, those subjects for me were really, really hard. Anatomy wasn't too hard. That wasn't too hard for me. The memorization and all that stuff wasn't too bad. But when it came down to like actually how the muscles worked, or actually how certain processes of organs worked, and microbiology and pharmacology for me was killer. So being able to read ahead, even though if you don't, understand like the majority of your reading, at least if you're reading ahead and you come into class the next day and sit through the lecture, you'll put basically, it's like putting a puzzle piece together. You read through the material the night before. You may have questions about the material you read through before, and you'll be able to ask those questions to your teacher the next day during the lecture. And it'll give you a better understanding of the material that you've been going over and that you read through. This is a process, and it's more work on your end because you do have to read ahead. But I'm telling you, it helps. If you take the time and you read ahead and you have that information before you go into a lecture, you will be so much better off. And you will have a better understanding of the processes of the human body and everything that you're going to be going over. Read ahead. Third step, it's memorization. There's no way around it. You're just going to have to suck it up, and you're going to have to memorize a bunch of crap. Anatomy, mainly anatomy, there's so much stuff to memorize. It seems like, it almost seems like it's endless at times. But cranial nerves, arteries, veins, bones, muscles, there's a lot to memorize. And there's just no way around it. You have to do it. You have to be able to know what these are. You need to make some note cards, make flashcards, have those flashcards out and keep those available, and just, flip through them every once in a while. Just make it rain flashcards. Oh my God, that was a mess. Go online, go to the App Store, find some maybe like anatomy applications that you can use to help you memorize bones or help you memorize muscles. There's tons of information out there, and most of it is free because they're all learning tools. Diagrams are a huge help. You can Google search a skeletal system diagram and find something with blank spaces and arrows pointed to certain bones. Get one of those and just carry it around with you all the time. The only way to memorize things is by repeating them over and over and over and over and over. That's the only way it's going to sink in. You can't just read something once or twice. You have to just stamp it into your brain. And the only way to do that is by repetitiveness and going over the subjects and going over, the muscles, the skeleton, the bones over and over and over and over and over. It sucks, but it's got to be done. So memorization, you just got to buckle down. Fourth one is group study. Now, group study, I was never really partial to group study, and I actually did not do much group studies during my CST school. But in FA school, it's a big deal. And I did not realize the power of group study until I did do it in FA school. We spent a week in Nashville doing a pig lab, and the only way to complete this pig lab is by passing this exam at the end of the week. They throw a ton of information on you, 8 hours a day for 5 days, and then you take a test on the 6th day. So we were in class for 8 hours a day, taking in all sorts of information, reading PowerPoints, all this stuff, and then later on in the evening, we would group together and study for 2-3 more hours, and then go to bed and get up and do it again For 5 days in a row, we did that as a group. And the only reason we did it is because one of the teachers there, Trey Wiseman, the first day we were there, he brought the class in. He said, you guys are going to have a lot of information thrown at you this week. You have a test at the end of the week, and the only way that you're going to ace this test is by studying as a group. He said, you study as a group, you pass as a group. I did not realize how powerful group study is. Yes, we had fun the whole time. We would eat dinner, during the nights. But the group study, not only is it fun, you're laughing, making jokes, having fun, but you're sharing notes with one another. You are using diagrams and testing one another for your memorization. It's so powerful, so powerful. I could not believe how easy the information was coming and how easily I was able to memorize everything that we went through. I mean, it was overwhelming the first day we were there, realizing how many diagrams and all of the information that we needed to memorize by the end of the week within 5 days. We were able to do it as a group, and every single one of us passed. So I want to say, for CST school, if you're in a surgical tech program, take a day with a part of your classroom, your whole class, however many people in your class are willing to do it. Just take one day. Find a place where you guys can group together, maybe like a Thursday night or a Wednesday night or something like that. Find a day where you guys can group together one day a week and share notes with one another. Go over the information that you've had to sit through for the entire week. When it's coming down to the end of your program, you can utilize that one day a week to help each other study for the CST exam. Group study is so powerful. Please utilize group study. I don't care if you're an introvert. I don't care if you think you study better by yourself. I'm telling you right now, group study it's amazing. You'll smash it out of the park. You really will. And it's so much easier to retain that information when you're studying and testing one another, throwing questions at one another, questioning notes, comparing notes. It's amazing. It really is. It works. Now, if you are on an online program and you don't have, group access, that sucks, and I'm sorry for that. But you can use like friends or family, and you can have them test you, and that also helps out. So, group study. I feel like it's one of the best tips. It helped me out immensely during my first assist program. So use it. Tip number 5, I want to talk about instrumentation. And a lot of you guys out there are having trouble or have asked questions about how you memorize those instruments, because there are so many of them. There are a ton of instruments. And again, this goes back to the last 4 tips that we just talked about. If you utilize those tips, you'll have a better understanding of where you're at with your instrumentation. Flashcards especially worked out a ton for me. When you get into your externship and you get hands-on with this instrumentation, that'll help a ton, because you're actually going to be feeling these instruments. Doctors are going to be asking for a Kelly clamp or an Adson forceps, and you'll be able to start bringing things together. And one of the biggest tips I have for you guys, when you're in your externship or when you're just about to go out to your externship and you have an idea of the different surgeries and the different instruments that you're going to be using, group them together. And by that, I mean, think of a surgery, think of a small bowel resection. Let's say an open laparotomy, small bowel resection. What type of instruments are you going to need for that case? Well, I can tell you that you're going to need a major tray, okay? What's inside of a major tray? What instruments am I going to need inside of a major tray? And start listing off all of those instruments that you think the doctor is going to need during that case. When you start meshing a surgery with the instruments that you're going to need, it comes together. And not only are you learning the instruments, but you're learning the surgery itself too, because it's going to help you recognize the steps of the surgery and the instruments that the surgeon's going to need throughout that procedure. I mean, instruments are hard. There's no doubt about it. Instruments are hard. There's a ton of stuff out there. You know, eye instruments, ENT, OB-GYN, there's tons and tons of stuff. Vascular, there's tons of vascular clamps out there. And your teachers aren't expecting you to memorize 500 plus instruments at one time, okay? You need to know what is common. If you have a basic understanding of what's going to be in a major tray, what's going to be in a minor tray, what's going to be in a hysterectomy tray, what's going to be in an ortho tray, that type of stuff, the basic things you're going to need for procedures throughout all specialties. There's a lot of similarities. You'll always see Kelly clamps inside of a tray. No matter what specialty it is, you're always going to see some Kelly clamps. You'll probably always see some Army Navies or Richardsons. You're probably always going to see some Adson forceps, some DeBakey's. You have to recognize instruments that you're going to see across the board on all specialties and make sure you memorize those instruments specifically, because those are things that you need to know. For those of you guys out there that needed these study tips and need the help out there in school, I hope this helped out, and I hope this was what you were looking for. It's been a while since I've been in tech school, so I can't quite remember exactly, you know, what I did, but it's hard. It's hard now because, you know, instrumentation and anatomy and physiology and pharmacology and all that stuff, it comes much easier to me now because I've been surrounded by it for so long, and you will get there too. Okay? Don't stress about it too much. Memorization is key. Memorization is number one. And if you suck at memorizing, get better. Get better. That's all I can tell you right now, is get better at it, because that is the key. That is the key to being a surgical tech, is memorization. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video again, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.